Hello and welcome to the Cosmology Institute, our Q&A conversation for exploration series. I'm Paul Robert, the Executive Director and President of the Institute, along with my wife, Laura Lee, the Director of Research, Education, and Outreach. And on behalf of our Board of Directors, our advisors, volunteers, and supporting members, we do want to thank you for joining us today. The Cosmology Institute is an independent, nonprofit research organization committed to researching consciousness and the human experience following the footsteps of our founder, anthropologist Dr. Felicitas Goodman. And our focus is reflected in three main areas: experience, education, and exploration. We respect the path of academic balance, the creative pursuit of science, while advancing, conserving, and restoring a direct experience of that deeper human connection to all of life. So it's part of our mission to expand our own experiential research with the multidisciplinary understanding that's available to us today. So as an educational institution, we take an open approach and we invite scholars in related fields to help broaden the scope of our own work on these Sunday roundtable conversations. That's why we call this Conversation for Exploration. Today, when we say the word consciousness, it's really easy to limit the discussion in terms of the human experience. However, what if consciousness is an extraordinary aspect of the universe itself, woven into the fabric of space and time, and how the structure and behavior of the universe may even give rise to consciousness? This intersection opens up profound questions into the role of the observer in shaping reality. The nature of time and the possibility of consciousness in the cosmos are deeply intertwined in ways that challenge our understanding of both. So today we're going to look how the cosmos and the human consciousness have this complex connection, offering us a rich, more expansive view of reality.
Well, indeed, focus on expanded view. In our work, in our ongoing quest to right our relationships with ourselves, our community, and the universe at large, as we deepen our personal relationship with the cosmos, we've been honoring all the multivariate wisdom traditions on this really age-old quest to know ourselves, our world, and our place in it. And while we use ancient time-honored tools, we are also blessed to live at a time with so many new tools to see further and farther and deeper into the dark. Tools such as the Hubble, and now with even sharper focus, the James Webb Space Telescope, among others. And with every image it beams back, it's telling us a new story of a cosmos insisting we redefine our relationship with that vastness enveloping us, as it reveals itself not as a cold, dark, and dying embers of a machine slowly running out of gas. That's such an old view. No, it is saying, I am alive. I am mysterious beyond measure. I am you, evolving, growing, expanding, a living, conscious being. And it is inviting us to celebrate along with us. Indeed, it is giving us the tools to celebrate along with it. We've talked with many of the spokespersons of the cosmos, going back decades. Today, cosmologist, educator, author Stephan Martin joins us. And at last, here's a cosmologist who is building a bridge between the cosmos and consciousness, between science and spirituality of this field. He's known for making the latest findings of science accessible to us all. Stephan also looks at the cultural impact of this new cosmic story. His books include, do you want to put them on screen?
Sure.
His books include Cosmic Conversations, dialogues on the nature of the universe and the search for reality, as well as Living a Cosmic Life, reflections on the cosmos, daily life, and personal experience. Oh, a guy after our own hearts. It is such a pleasure to welcome you, Stephan. Thanks for joining us here today. And thanks for all the work that you do.
Yeah.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for the work that you do and for your gracious invitation to join this wonderful community. I see people I recognize, on our call here today, people I don't know, but just I feel such a resonance, such a co-resonance with our shared direction together in exploring the cosmos, bringing together ancient and modern wisdom together in personal experience. So just know it's, the appreciation is coming back to you for this conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. I also appreciate and want to acknowledge Brian Tucker, our mutual friend and acquaintance, because Brian is the one who introduced us to you. So Brian, what do you want to say about this
Well,
cosmologist? And yeah.
It's so exciting to have Steve here with us. And I agree, there's great synergy between our community of Cuyamonga Institute and the work that Stephen, and I see there are several other deep time members that are here listening today as well. Steve, I have to say, I was really so amazed by your book, Cosmic Conversations, and the breadth of conversations. You were having conversations with Brian Swim, Fred Allen Wolf, Peter Russell, Edgar Mitchell, Barbara Marks Hubbard. It's just lovely compilation and really stirs your my interest and imagination around how to apply consciousness and science, how to bring these areas together. And so I'm excited because I think in this community, we practice the ritual body postures and people have a direct experiential understanding of what you'll be talking about. So I feel like there'll be great synergy and great resonance with your message. So very glad to have you here today.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Brian.
Yeah.
So we want to ask you, Stephen, how did your journey begin? I mean, next Sunday, we'll be asking people, tell us your journey and how you found your destiny. And what were those unseen hands pushing you along your path? What is yours? Where did yours begin?
Well, Laura Lee, I love the term that you use, the unseen hand, right? It's kind of those invisible helpers or those kind of prompts from the larger perspective that are present. When I was about 8 years old, I was captured by the stars. And I use the word captured because
Love that.
it's almost like they reached down and just took a hold of me. I mean, I was young. I've got a son who's 10 years old right now. And so, I'm aware of that age. And I had a lifelong fascination with everything as a child. I mean, I was a voracious reader, cleared the library out of its books, read everything I could. And I was fascinated by everything, especially natural sciences. I mean, I was always looking under rocks, exploring, the woods and forests where I lived. But there's something about the stars that captured me, something about their beauty. And I can feel it, but I can't particularly articulate it. But I guess my whole career has been an attempt to follow up on that fascination and to articulate, well, what is that capture that I feel, that fascination, that allurement, which is the term that Brian Swim uses? What's that allurement that is here? And one thing I love about my love affair with the stars is that it's always ongoing. There's always more.
Yeah.
Right? It's always something that's out of our grasp physically, right? Because, they're so far away. But also, we live in a universe that's expanding. So there's always more universe. Right? There's always more to discover. So it's an ongoing journey of discovery. It's a never-ending story. Exactly. So it began from there. And at the same time, I felt the sense of, right, the wonder, the awe, the mystery that was explored through science, but also a sense of something else that people weren't talking about, something that I perceived, right? That invisible hand or that sense of something more that people didn't talk about. I was raised Catholic, and so they sort of pointed at that, in these traditions, but it seemed like I was tuned into something, I was listening to something, I was perceiving something that no one else around me seemed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so that always interested me as well. And so I read widely and was interested in philosophy and religious studies and spirituality of all kinds. And so when it came time to go to university, I couldn't just choose science. I couldn't just do the scientific approach. I had to choose a liberal arts college. And so I did a liberal arts undergraduate education, focused on science, of course, but I wanted to explore art and philosophy. And I probably would have been a philosophy minor, but I had to take too many math courses. So just there wasn't room for that there, but it found its way in what I was reading, during summers and other times. So there's always been this kind of bringing together these two parts of myself, the scientific and you could say the more spiritual or the more, I hate to say humanities, but just, the human, the nature, nature.
Holistic.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
it's building
the
a bridge from here to the all, right? We need to.
Well, and also feeling in my heart an appreciation for the whole, right? There's a
Mhm.
wholeness here. And if I choose just one, then it doesn't feel like I'm honoring the other part. And
Yeah,
so I
because
felt
you
like I needed
started
to,
with the love. You were captured. You started with the love. How do you bring
The
that into
mysteries.
what you do?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So my two loves were science and philosophy, science and, human culture. And certainly I have a preference. My favorite child is science, but it doesn't mean that the other one is loved any less.
How do you integrate the two? Yeah. And really
Yeah.
there is a false dichotomy as well, right?
Exactly. Exactly. They're two parts of ourselves, right? They're two parts of the cosmos, or one of many parts of the cosmos. And I was on a call last night where someone used the word the two eyes, right? Can we
Mm,
look at the world with the two eyes, right? One with the eye of science, the other with the
mm.
eye of spirit, or the say eye of uh,
We are
whatever it is that
built
it
to
comes.
be bicameral beings, to live a fuller life and to
Mhm.
see more deeply. We
That's
don't
a
get
great
to
way to
see
put it.
depth without the bicameral view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're not in competition. They're complementary, right? They support and enrich each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So where did you go from there?
So from there, I went on to graduate school, and actually reflecting back in my research, I've made kind of a scientific study of studying the invisible. Right? In graduate school, I
Ooh, I
studied
love that.
dark matter halos around spiral
Uh-huh.
galaxies, right? These invisible regions of influence that we feel, that we see the effects of, but we can't see directly with our eyes. I mean,
Right.
isn't that interesting that so much of the universe is this substance or phenomena or whatever it is called dark matter?
Mm.
And, even greater than that is dark energy. So that these dark parts of the cosmos are what are
Yeah.
really shaping the evolution and destiny of the cosmos. And we feel it, and yet we don't see it with our eyes. And we
Mm.
don't see it with our instruments. So
So
the
dark
invisible
is really
can,
an attribute not of that matter. It's really an attribute of our limited capacity for seeing it, right? We just don't have the bandwidth to see it. So,
I don't know if that's true or not. It doesn't, because it doesn't show up
oh,
on any of our
interesting.
telescopes, right?
Yeah.
We've looked for dark matter from radio wavelengths to infrared to microwave to visible to ultraviolet, all the way through the whole spectrum of what we know. And it doesn't show up in any of those. The effects show up, but we
Interesting.
don't see it itself.
Yet we
So it's
feel it.
something that's,
Yeah.
we feel it, but we don't see it. But what a metaphor that is for,
Yeah.
how much of, our experience is that way.
Got
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The
Later
study of the
on,
invisible. Okay.
later on, I also participated in research where I traveled around the world studying solar eclipses, right? And solar eclipses, of course, are profound opportunities for alignment between sun, moon, and earth.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, of course, there's a mythic dimension to that, and they're powerful experiences. But scientifically, it's a wonderful way to study the sun's corona, which is the outermost layer of the sun, which is always there, but is invisible to us because the photosphere, the visible face of the sun, is so much brighter. So the best time to study the corona is when it is eclipsed by the moon, and then the corona shines brightly, and that's that gorgeous, pearly halo that surrounds the sun.
We got to
Once again,
experience our first one just April 8th.
Yeah.
So that was great.
oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
terrific! I was in Mexico for an expedition for viewing it as well, so I'm so glad you got to see it. It's
Yeah.
really a wonderful, wonderful experience.
I even got the mug and that,
Gift from Tony Hall.
yeah.
Drink
Yeah.
into,
Drink
I
in the
love it.
totality. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Well, fabulous. So, and then this is one thing has led to another with your career, and I love the fact that you're this integration and perspective that you see, that you don't see conflict with being able to look at the full spectrum of the human aspect of consciousness and how that integrates into the universe that surrounds us, and what is that deeper connection to us and all that is. And like I said in my first few sentences of introduction today, and that is that we sometimes limit ourselves to thinking when we say the word consciousness, we're talking about humans. But what if we can step outside of that view, like you're doing, and say, wait a minute, consciousness is all that is around us.
maybe it's
And
that substrate,
yeah,
right?
yeah. So build on that if you would.
And also, you're
I,
sharing this with the greater
Yeah,
public. And how is that story being received? You're not just limiting your education amongst your peers, but you're really expanding out to bring all of us
yeah.
into this
The layperson as well.
allurement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. Well, one of my interests and one of kind of a focus of where I put my attention is how is everyday life reflecting the larger dynamics of the cosmos,
Mm.
right? And we could say that's happening through consciousness. But I like to look at, our personal experience as being a reflective of a larger dimension of experience that's happening here.
Thank you.
And I've been involved with a number of colleagues where we're doing contemplative events. A few weeks ago, we did a contemplating the sun event, which had people from around the world joining on the Zoom call, and we talked about some of the science of the sun, but also had contemplative practices to kind of get into the space of the sun in a revelatory space.
Love it.
And so these are just wonderful places to kind of bring, our own human capacities for perception together, and unpack some of the scientific insights and just see what those insights have to say.
Mhm.
Because all these insights are the universe speaking to us in different ways. And if we listen, whether we're listening through the ear of science or, the ear of spirituality, what is the universe trying to tell us?
What kind of answers did you get? What is the universe trying to tell us?
What's remarkable is, the sun, and of course, ancient cultures know this, and this is reflected in your posture work, right? The sun is this immense being that we spend every day with. And of course, day is defined by the presence of the sun. And yet all life on Earth is entirely dependent on sun's energy. Right? So our cars run on stored sunlight. When we eat food, that's captured sunlight that's been stored by plants. When we go outside, our skin knows how to convert sunlight into vitamin D. I mean, we are directly nourished in a relationship with the sun. And unpacking some
We're
of the
made from
stuff,
other stars, right?
we're made from other stars. And we have this ongoing relationship with a particular star, right? A very particular star, a special star that we call sun. Right? Not just, sun, but the sun.
Ours.
And our sun, exactly. Yeah. And so there's a remarkable relationship between Earth and sun, between sun and the solar system, between sun and our own particular experience. Every single aspect of life on Earth is designed to capture the sun's energy, right? Because all life on Earth runs on solar energy. And so we've all found myriad different ways. Trees are the geniuses at this because they're covered in photoreceptors. Right? They're the first ones who learned to really worship the sun.
Mm.
But humans as well. But I think it's very underappreciated that we have this magnificent radiant being that we call sun, which is an example of cosmic generosity. I mean, the sun is giving away 4 million tons of itself every second, converting it into light. And I think that's really underappreciated. In our daily life, it's like, oh, it's sunny out today. It's like, no, the sun is coming into our life today in a very strong way. So that's one way that I think science is revealing hidden dimensions of our interconnectedness with the world around us
Mm.
that show up directly in our personal experience. I mean, we're alive, we're awake, we're having this conversation because the sun has come into us and is enlivening us this way. If the sun
Powering
wasn't
us.
present, yeah. So it's really, we're participating in solar awareness through this conversation. It's what's making this possible.
Solar awareness.
That's just a tidbit of science. I mean, this is textbook science, but when you unpack it in a particular context,
I can't
there's
wait
so
for
much
you
more
to
to it.
join our community
Okay.
roundtable, and you can talk to our community about their
Oh,
connections to the sun, how sun shows up in these visionary experiences, and
we'll
their
talk about that.
yeah, this is going to
Yeah.
be fun. Okay, the cultural aspect of this. It's interesting, and Tony Hall, who's here today, has pointed out a few times that while we are expanding our understanding of this cosmos further and farther than ever before, we are also, with our technology, at the same time putting up many thousands and thousands of satellites that eventually threaten to obscure our naked eye view of those stars around us that we've enjoyed from time immemorial. What is your thoughts on that?
Isn't that ironic? I mean, that we're starting to pollute space in the same way that we're polluting the Earth. And, missions are being planned to the moon. And we can almost predict that if we don't change our human consciousness, our relationship with the environment around us, that something similar might happen on the moon and wherever we go. So we bring our human sensibilities and our human consciousness to whatever area we're exploring, whatever area we're going into. So that has to change. I mean, it has to change at this root level of relationship, this sense of being in right relationality with our environment, with the world around us.
Absolutely.
And that means, having an end-to-end plan for these satellites. Don't just leave them up there as debris, because when they break apart, they become hazards for astronauts. They fall to Earth again. I mean, it's just,
They're creating a
it's
shield
crazy.
between us and that relationship, just for everybody on Earth to see the stars at night too.
I
But
know.
what is the role of this new information, our new renewed and redefined relationship with our cosmos to help us clean up our mess, to redefine our relationship with our Earth?
Mm.
How does this impact it? What is your view on that?
Well, it's redefining our relationship to the world around us, and that, you know, we don't live in the universe, but we are the universe, right? So we have this fundamental cultural myth of separation. Humans are somehow different. We're separate. If you think we're at the hierarchy, we're at the top of the food chain in some way. But, you know, indigenous wisdom has always held that we're part of the circle of life, right? We are, you know, on equal footing. And I think this is where the cosmic evolutionary story can really be of service, right? To show that everything in our life and our experience around us shares the same cosmic story. We're all part of this 13.8 billion year journey of the universe.
Right.
And so we're all in that sense of on equal footing because we're all kind of the differentiated whole of the cosmos as it's revealing itself in this moment.
And if
So
humans
we're,
have any special role, it would be that we can see this, experience this, reflect this, um, and
yeah,
adjust course because of this revelation.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and Thomas Berry, who I know is a great friend of your work, talked about, you know, perhaps our role as humans is to celebrate the universe, right? We have this capacity for self-reflection and appreciation, for gratitude and celebration. So that might be one of our primary roles here on this planet, is to celebrate the fact that we can appreciate
Mm.
the universe around us.
And behave
Wouldn't that be a
accordingly.
different foundation for a culture?
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And how we treat one another and our planet. We have a slideshow. You have a
Yeah.
slideshow with a couple of some of these images that are being beamed back from the James Webb, and it's helping tell that story. Would you like to run through those? And
I'd love to share some of these. Yeah.
yeah,
And we won't dwell on them, but use them as springboards for conversation. Let me start with this one picture here.
Feedback. Okay.
We go here. And I'm going to go to this one right here. Oops. Vacation fund. We'll get back to that one. Can you see the image now?
we can.
Yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. So this is the image from the James Webb telescope. You know, and I worked on the original Hubble Space Telescope when it was launched in 1990. So I know, you know, just kind of the magnitude of what this instrument is really offering us in terms of its depth and its capacity to peer deeply into the universe. This is a deep field image. So every dot pretty much in this image is a galaxy. And these galaxies are all at different distances because the universe, of course, is extended throughout time. And this is an image of the earliest galaxy ever detected. So, in other words, the one that is most recent that we're aware of since the Big Bang or since the flaring fork or the birth of the universe. So, in our sense, we might say, well, this is the furthest one away from us, which means it's the oldest one we've seen, but we're seeing it when it was just a baby. And
Baby pictures, aren't we?
this is the baby picture. And
Yeah.
it doesn't have a very glamorous name. You know, Jade's GS Z140, and that's referring to kind of the name of the survey, but also its distance as well. And this is this galaxy as it appeared 300 million years after the Big Bang. Right? That's fairly
It
early.
goes way back.
That goes way back. Right. So, and what was surprising is that this galaxy has characteristics which indicate it's much more mature, it's much more fully developed than astronomers had expected with our current theories about how galaxies form. So, in other words,
Uh,
somehow, right out of the gate, the universe was very energetic in making galaxies and somehow knew how to do that very quickly. So, it's almost like these galaxies were waiting in the wings, the conditions were just right, and galaxies came forth very quickly. And you know, as Brian Swim says, the universe was very excited about galaxies at this time. And here's one of these that's just remarkable in terms of its maturity, is bursting with star formation, it's on fire with creativity.
and
And the
what if we
question is
could
what,
see it today? How old it would be now? Wow.
well, it'd
We
be
don't,
13.5
but we
billion
don't
years
know
old.
what form it would be now. It would go through this whole long evolution. But
Exactly, exactly. It may not even exist anymore. It may have been emerged, it may have changed. We don't know, but we saw it back then. But images like this show that the universe is on a journey. right? This happened, and then this happened. And by looking at these slices of the universe at different histories, we can see that the universe is developed. And so we're not in a cosmos, but we're in a cosmogenesis. And I love that Brian Swim has brought forward that word in our culture. We live in a cosmogenetic universe, a cosmogenetic reality, a universe that is giving birth to itself in a new way, moment by moment by moment. So it's a dynamic, developmental, evolutionary process. It's not a thing, it's not a place, but it's a process.
So
And
Genesis being a birth, Genesis being biblical, Genesis being the genetics. This is
exactly.
just, yeah, this is
Yeah, exactly. And right, our
it's
genetics go
origin
back to the
story.
cosmos. It
Yeah,
is,
yeah,
right? We are genetically linked to the birth of time.
yeah,
So our genetics aren't just in our genes, but they go all the way back 13.8 billion years. So it's a cosmogenetic universe,
yeah. Wow.
one that had a birth and is continuing to
Evolve.
emerge in new ways. Exactly, exactly. And that changes everything, right? Because instead of things
It's a
being static, they're
living
process.
being. Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
exactly, which is a very ancient perspective.
yeah.
Let me go to the next slide here. And so here's an example, and I like to point out the power of context. This is an image called the Whirlpool Galaxy, and you can see how it looks like a whirlpool. It was taken with the Hubble Space Telescope. Every dot in this image, of course, is a star. And of course, there are hundreds of billions of stars in this image. And this was taken through two different uh, filters, right? Visible light, which we see with our eyes, but also infrared light, which, if you can see my cursor here,
Mm-hmm.
highlights these clumps along the spiral arms. These dark patches are thick clouds of gas and dust, which are the raw materials from which stars form. And these clumps, these reddish clumps, are places where star formation is occurring. Right? These
Oh,
are
wow.
nebulae, these are star forming regions. This
Mm-hmm.
is where new stars, novelty is expressing itself very strongly. Stars are being born.
Mm.
And then it's yellowish in the center because this is where older stars tend to live. So this is not a static thing, it's a dynamic process. And we're seeing it as a snapshot. And we might think, oh, a galaxy is a thing. No, a galaxy is an event. It's an ongoing cosmogenetic process. It's alive with creativity. It's alive with generativity. But this is the context in which we live, right? We live in a reality that is autopoietic, right? Which means it's self-organizing at every point within itself. It's
Mm.
creative, it's dynamic, and it's evolutionary.
And it has a life and a death and a rebirth, just like we do.
Yeah, yeah. These seem to be properties of life as a whole, as
Mm.
well as the cosmos.
Yeah.
Right.
But I want to point out one particular aspect here, which I think is really important, and that's the self-organizing property of this. Every
Yeah.
point in the galaxy is the point of its creativity. It's not like it's being directed from the center and that's making it all happen, but every point is where the creativity of the galaxy is coming forward in a new way, which means that every point in our environment, in our location, is the source of the cosmos' creativity.
Oh,
Right?
wow.
Our own desires, our own capacities are the portals through which cosmic creativity can flow. This
Like
conversation,
we say the center is everywhere and the boundaries are nowhere. That is our
exactly,
experience.
exactly.
This is living
Yeah,
proof of that.
and it's an emergent center. It's not a static center, it's an emergent center. So our conversation is a
Yeah.
place where cosmic creativity is coming in. Emergence is happening right here in a way that's never happened before. No, each point is the center of the universe as a whole, but also the center of the universe's dynamism, creativity, and emergence. Right. So we're all the place where the universe is coming forward in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to use an image like this just to show that the center is everywhere, the creativity is everywhere. We're all the universe's creativity. Right. Because this is overcoming one of these myths in our culture that, oh, only artists are creative. It's like, oh, I'm not creative. No, everyone is creative because we're made of cosmic creativity.
Mm.
I just really want to put that out there as a message because the creativity is present everywhere. Every conversation has the capacity to be creative and
Mm.
emergent and cosmogenetic, give birth to something new. I just point to the possibilities of the now,
Yeah.
as an expression of cosmic potential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah.
We are much more powerful than we know. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, it's I and thou, right? That tree, that brook, that person in front of you is also the source of the universe and cosmic creativity. They are also deserving of our respect. So
Well,
I think this is the
also we have a
cure for
much
a lot
bigger
of,
family and a much bigger community than we know.
yeah,
And the cosmos is our backyard. That is our
exactly.
experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Well, and just to go back to Thomas Berry, right? The universe is a communion of subjects,
yeah,
Mhm.
right? Not a
not a
collection of
collection
objects.
of objects. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So every place and every person, place, thing,
Mhm.
and event is a subject. It's a place where universe is expressing itself in a new way. Really important at a time where there's so much polarization in the larger culture, finding this place where we can find this place of commonality, one with a cosmic story, but also seeing that the other is also a source potentially of
Mhm.
cosmic wisdom and insight
And
and
also, we
deserves our
need to
respect.
treat our web of life with respect. We're not the top dog. We're a equal member of our ecosystem.
Yeah.
We're a spoke on the wheel, to use that metaphor.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And it does
Yeah.
come back to consciousness. I mean, that idea that that separation, that division that we see, there has to be some element to the human experience that can get past that division. And that comes from a level of consciousness, awareness of something that takes us beyond the limitations of the fragmented thinking that we sometimes
Well, and a
adapt.
reset of our worldview, a reset of the story that we're telling ourselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I had an experience of this last night because I watched a documentary about what they're learning about the minds of dogs.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I have an entirely new experience of my dog right now because what they're saying is your dogs are always communicating with us, right? They're always kind of, sharing their consciousness with us. It's just whether
Right.
we can listen to them and hear what they're saying. And so I just found another overlap of commonality because clearly my dog and I can communicate,
Yeah.
right? We can exchange back and forth. We can communicate information. She wants to be fed. She wants to go for a walk, or she's, sending me love. There's some common, there's some common experience we have. You could call it consciousness, but there's some shared experience in
Mhm.
between species. I mean, here's direct evidence of it in our homes that we are deeply connected with other species. Indigenous people, of course, know this, but it's nice to kind of bring it back to the American household. It's like, oh, talk to your dog, listen to your dog. What are they saying?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Learn his language.
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
yeah. But they're always communicating. I just love that from the documentary.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing's true of the world. The world is always communicating to us. The universe is always communicating. It's just, can we listen? Can we develop the ears to listen and the
Well,
capacities and the attitudes?
and so many conversations are going on between creatures and the cosmos. And I love the dung beetle who is said to roll his little ball of dung in alignment with the Milky Way overhead. How does he know that? If he has the receptor sites, that little beetle has receptor sites to imbibe the stars, so do we, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And not just to vibe, but just to align their activity with the stars. I mean,
Mhm.
Right.
they want to align with the Milky Way. It's not just look at it, they want to align their activity with it. That
Mm.
is
Yeah.
something. So
Yeah.
I think that's something that's needed is can we align our activity as humans, but also as part of the life systems of the earth with the dynamics of the earth and of the
Right.
cosmos? That's
And live
that's
a
the
fuller,
question.
richer life in doing so.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, it's part
Next
of
slide. Go
this.
ahead.
That's that thing about looking at when you start looking at the sacred temples and sacred sites around the planet, and how much effort human beings go through to build alignments and to move these giant stones and do all this work. And yet, like you're pointing out, it's also the alignment comes from within. So and but there's some drive, some significance, some knowingness, like the beetle. We have that knowingness that we want to align with it. So we go grab these giant pieces of megalithic stones and drag them into place so we can say, hey, look, we are aligned with
Let
you.
us know where you are on the
Yeah.
horizon. Or look at the
Yeah.
Egyptian solar discs
Yeah.
that some of those statues wear.
Yeah. That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I'm also thinking about kind of the ancient technologies that you all enact in your postural sessions, right? These come from ancient artifacts, which
Right.
really are symbols of alignment of particular energies of the cosmos.
Ex-
And ancient peoples figured that out.
Mm.
And it's not even so much that temples are designed to align, but also focus energies from the cosmos, but they're
Yeah.
built on a felt resonance. It's like,
Yes.
can we build structures? Can we build human civilizations based on this resonance and alignment with the cosmos?
Or how can we
Like the dung
amplify
beetle.
our own inner technology? And we can we don't show the artifact ahead of time, but we can stand in a posture depicted by an artifact wearing a solar disk. It's amazing how many people then have that experience of the sun and communication, but they haven't seen the artifact. It's revelatory when we show, oh, look at this artifact. Afterwards,
Right.
things like that. Speaking
Well,
of
and
this,
it,
yeah.
and just to build on that, it just shows that our human body, our human experience is a magnifier. It's an amplifier. It's an antenna
It's an
for
antenna.
aligning with and receiving the energy of the universe.
Designed by the cosmos.
Designed
What are
by
the
cosmos.
genetics we're blessed with that is a gift that produces this inner technology that can witness all of that? I mean, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and really, that's what telescopes do. I mean, as an astronomer, of course, I'm favored towards telescopes, but these are instruments of extending human capacity for perception
Yes.
into the
Let's open the
cosmos. The
bound,
James
yeah.
Webb, if you ever saw the image of the original animation of the James Webb, I mean, it opens like a great golden eye on the cosmos. It's really gorgeous just to see that. It's like a human eye, 1,000,000 miles from Earth, opening on the cosmos. And it's in this attitude of receptivity. I like to say that astronomy is, one of the most humble of the sciences because we have to wait for the light to come to us. If it's cloudy, we close the doors, we go in, and we watch movies, right? But when you're at the observatory, you have to wait for the light to come to us. You have to be in this receptive posture. You have to create this instrument of receptivity and magnification of the light from the cosmos. But in that sense, it's potentially, a very humble science because we can't go to the cosmos. We have to wait for it to come to us and to be open and receptive and permeable.
It is certainly
through
giving
light.
us the come hither, has it not, since time immemorial?
Yeah.
And I think Tony
It's
Hall
the
will
ul-
have something to say. He worked on
later
the
on
James
as we,
Webb.
yeah, because
Yeah,
and it's the ultimate transcendent experience. Since some of us are not real, parts of humanity doesn't get a chance to close its eyes and look within. All of a sudden, okay, we'll take a telescope and we'll take you out into the universe and we'll show you what's going on in the very elements of who you are and what you represent and what you're connected to. All of a sudden, there's a transcendent experience by just looking at a James Webb telescope photograph. All of a sudden, oh my gosh, I'm so concerned with my daily life. I'm so absurd.
But isn't that beautiful? We
yeah.
look within, we look without.
Yeah. So
We're going to see.
It's a great interconnection.
It's talking to us on so many levels.
The visual meditation of
It's
it
not
all. Yeah.
redundancy.
Yeah.
We're going to get through to you one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think what you're pointing to is really important, Paul, because when people look at this, there's a sense of unity. There's a sense of awe. There's a sense of wonder, right?
Yes.
The everyday mind tends to just sort of stop.
Right.
And we're stopped in this place of wonder, which really is our natural home. I mean, that's really where the cosmos lives, but that's really the home for the human is in this place of wonder.
And that is ecstasy, and the way that we define it, step outside your normal bounds, ecstasis, you're stepping beyond that.
Right.
But also when those boundaries dissolve and you merge with that oneness, however briefly, that is true communion. That's ecstatic. That's allurement fulfilled.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Wow.
I want to just share one more story too. Is one thing I love doing is doing stargazing with people because when we do stargazing, people have all kinds of different backgrounds. They might have different cultural, political backgrounds. When we look at the cosmos together, we're all together wrapped in wonder. And so it's a way of going beyond all the cultural divisions, all the ways that we might normally separate ourselves from each other. And we're spending time together really as children of the cosmos, wrapped in wonder. So there's just a wonderful unifying capacity for that.
We're all crew on Spaceship Earth, said Bucky Fuller. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think we should have political rallies, always outside under the stars, right? Let's remember the oneness. Or the debates, right? They should take place under the stars. Let's remember that. So yeah, that unifying perspective. Yeah. Let me see what other slides I have here. Here we go. So here I am at the Holmdel Horn Antenna. And Brian Tucker was here with us. This is in Holmdel, New Jersey. This is the antenna, which looks like a giant ear because it is, right? It's a radio telescope, or it's a horn antenna for capturing microwave wavelengths of light. which we can tune the dial and hear as radio waves. And so here I am saying, look, can you listen? This is a giant ear. And this is the ear, this is the antenna, this is the instrument where on this hill in Holmdel, New Jersey in 1964, astronomers first heard the echoes of the Big Bang, right? The echoes of the cosmic background radiation, which is everywhere, but no one had really looked for it in this way. And so this is the place where it was detected. And so this is where we had confirmation of our alignment with the birth of the universe. This is confirmation for the Big Bang theory that everything began in a Big Bang or a great emergence event. And what we're hearing through this instrument is the relic or the fireball of that radiation from a very special time in cosmic history, 380,000 years after that event.
I remember the headlines at the time, fingerprints of God. They described it in the media.
Yeah. So it was a landmark event, and I was there as part of a deep time network gathering, but also to acknowledge this as being preserved as a park. It's being preserved as a park by the town of Holmdel, New Jersey. The mayor was there. Robert Wilson, who was one of the Nobel Prize winning discoverers, was there. It's named after him. So I love that. And there was strong advocacy because they wanted to tear this antenna down and build condominiums, right? That's such a modern way of approaching things. But here is this sacred site. Here's this place where humans first
Truly.
heard the birth of the universe.
It's a kind of a
And
temple, isn't it?
it is a temple. It's a modern scientific, technological temple to the cosmos.
Yeah.
And through great effort and great advocacy, it was preserved. It's being preserved for future generations, as a park, as a sacred site. And so just point that out. By the way, you don't need an antenna like this to hear this. You can tune your radio dial to any place in between stations.
Really?
Remember yeah. So remember, if you have an analog radio, tune it in between stations to where you hear static. And one out of every 100 or so pieces of static is a fragment of this echo of the fireball. So you can actually hear it through your AM or FM radio and listen to it. So when you tune in between stations, you hear that static. Some of that static is being picked up by the radio. That is the relic
because
of the
it's
fireball.
not out there. It's also waving. It's a wave that's running through us, right? As well. It's here.
We are immersed in this cosmic background reach because everywhere was that place where the universe came into being. And so everywhere is where the echo of that fireball is present.
Still rippling. Wow.
So it's in the air between us in our conversation. It's in the room that we're each in.
Then
the fireball is
ourselves.
here. Exactly.
Wow.
So the birth of the universe is right here. Where did the birth of the universe take place? It took place right here and there and there and there, everywhere.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, isn't that just stunning? I mean,
That
just to
is.
kind of take that in to kind of contemplate. And this is a way that we can actually bring in contemplative practices. If we could just sort of contemplate, I'm just going to pause this for just a minute.
Wow.
Just contemplate that right here is where the universe came into being. Right? The echo of the Big Bang is right here in this room, in this moment. It's in you, it's in me, it's right here. And we've developed ears to kind of listen to that. But we're immersed in that fireball of the Big Bang. There's just something
It's reverberating still within us. Yeah.
reverberating, and it's all around us. So just remarkable. I think about how many sacred sites.
Yeah.
It is the matrix. It's the matrix, and it's our interconnectedness with the origin of everything. So this is the place of pilgrimage. This is the place where we go to honor and acknowledge the sacred birth of the universe. It's right here within your heart, right here in your room, right here in this conversation. And this is
thankful
textbook
to all the
science.
people who helped preserve that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who saw the significance of it. So I would love to see that done more often. Right?
I mean, you can imagine generations hence that people will make a pilgrimage, especially when we have such advanced technology in the future, and they'll go to this site and they'll say, look at this, how primitive that will look to them, but look what they did. Yeah.
I know, right? To preserve some of these sites as sacred sites, right? They're sacred sites of our cultures. Exactly. Yeah. So the horn is basically a giant ear for listening to the cosmos. Let me just
Horn of cornucopia, same shape.
Yeah.
Mhm.
it is, right? Here's another image. Here's some more oops, right here.
One-
And so here I am inside the control room, and where my
Pretty
ear is,
ecstatic there, Steve.
this is taken by an Associated Press photographer who happened to be on site. So it's a really good picture. But yeah, I'm open, I'm listening. I'm at the place where they first had the detector that heard the birth of the universe. And so of course this is, you know, my excitement there. But yeah, being in that place where they first heard it, and you could hear sounds from outside it. The horn actually concentrates sound as well.
Mm.
So really amazing. Just another example of a telescope. Here I am 2 weeks ago in Green Bank, West Virginia, with my son, who's 10 years old.
Oh, cute.
And in the background here's where the my cursor is. This is the 100-meter Green Bank telescope. It's the largest steerable telescope in the world, and it's a dish 100 meters wide, right, larger than a football field in diameter. And it's basically a receptor for listening to the cosmos. I just love that, right? So here's a receptor from the cosmos. And human bodies are also receptors and antennas for listening to the cosmos. So here we are, human and technological ways of listening to the cosmos.
Mhm.
Of course, my son's so cute. I want to have my pictures too.
He is.
Yeah. Here we go. So here's this picture we saw before.
Right.
Here's the whirlpool image. Let me see what this one. So this is a computer simulation of the large scale structure of the cosmos.
Wow.
Every dot in this image represents a galaxy or a cluster of galaxies. And so we see that the universe on large scales is web-like. And Laura Lee, you commented, it looks like neurons in the brain. It looks like a giant brain. It looks like it's got this kind of organic web-like structure.
It looks like tissue as well.
Yeah.
It looks like tissue, exactly. And this is beyond what we're able to map technologically at this point, but it's a simulation. And you can see there's areas where there's long chains of galaxies, and there's large areas where there's voids or bubbles. So the cosmos seems to have this web-like structure, right? These interconnected strands across it. This is just remarkable. So I just point this out as an example of the deep relationality
Well,
in between it.
another example of that old adage, as above, so below. And no matter what scale you're looking at, from the microscopic to the macro, we have the similar patterns.
Yeah, nature loves patterns and loves using patterns in different scale levels. So we have this web-like pattern here in the cosmic level, but it also looks like tissue or fascia. It looks like,
We are built in these patterns
The
that the
image.
universe long ago established.
exactly. So it makes sense that we would have these kinds of patterns within us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I love that these are Montessori nesting dolls that they use in their classrooms. And I love that the Montessori approach begins with teaching children about the universe. They teach children, first of all, about their place in the universe. Like, oh,
Good place to begin. Yeah.
so here you are, you're part of a family, and your family is part of a town, and your town is part of a state. Your state is part of a continent, right? You're part of a world, part of the earth. The earth is part of the cosmos. Everything fits because everything is part of a nested whole. So I love that this is a way of teaching children that they have a place. They have a place where they belong. There's a sense of belonging that's woven into this educational approach. And of course, indigenous and other cultures around the world also do this as well. But we begin with the vision that we belong. There's a context of belonging, of wholeness at all these different levels.
I
And
like
so
that it's put a female face to this. And it reminds me of Nut, the Egyptian goddess that looks as the canopy of the stars. And also that there's that sense of the overarching roof of shelter to this. And so we are enveloped, we are embraced by this cosmos. It is a
yeah,
loving mother to us. So I like
yeah.
that aspect came through this nested doll set.
Me too, right? And there and many of these esoteric traditions, there's a cosmic dimension to Mary as well, right?
Yeah.
And the Christian tradition as well. So this idea of a matrix, right? Matrix, of course, comes from mother, right? That there's a matrix that's holding everything in the right place,
Or as our
we're
friend
always
Monica
magnetized.
says, mother and matter, same etymology, same root word.
It's the same root, exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So mother matter, mother universe. And then here's a wonderful visual timeline of the cosmic evolutionary story. And I like that it's a spiral. Right? Often in textbooks you see it as like an arrow. It's like pointing very strongly, towards the future. But this is really more an organic form, and that the universe is unfolding. It's unfolding. It's revealing itself in new ways. And of course, this is with a logarithmic scale because this is highlighting the development of life on Earth. In the later stages, of course, this would just be, uh, you know, um, a hair's breadth if this were a timeline on a cosmic scale. But it's really emphasizing that we began from this flaring forth through the old stars, galaxies, planets, development of moon, life on Earth. And then here we are here, and it's not a static image. This is the burning edge, right? The edge is still revealing itself right here. So I wish this were, a movie because you could see that the burning edge is this conversation right here. It's what's happening right now all around the world and everywhere in the cosmos. So it's a living unfoldment.
And what a
And we
journey
live
we've
on
been
the edge.
on. Yeah.
What a journey. And our bodies remember this. Our bodies remember the 13.8 billion year journey because they've kind of recapitulated that development, right? Both,
Oh my gosh.
right? The atoms in our body come from the stars, but also the development of our organs come from previous generations of life, right? So we've in some way encapsulated the history of life, as have the 10 million other species we share the planet with as well.
Okay, so rather than say what a journey we've been on, we could say what a journey every atom, every speck has been on.
Oh
Wow.
yeah, I mean, did that hydrogen atom, from way back here know it's going to be, part of your dinner tonight? Who
Yeah.
knows?
Wow.
Yeah, what a journey. So every single atom in the universe is on a journey as well. And that journey right now for the atoms in our body includes this configuration of energy and matter. And after we pass on, then the atoms will be on another journey.
Mhm. Wow.
So once again, there's this reincarnation aspect of matter and energy throughout cosmic history, which creates the different forms that we see.
Beautiful.
Once
Life,
again,
death, and
ancient and
rebirth of
modern
all.
wisdom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
the ancient and modern coming together again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Carlos Budassi was such a genius in being able to kind of show these in such evocative ways. He's
And
passed
like,
away since, but
yeah, and like you say, the spiral tells the story so much better. I love it that way.
and the spiral being an archetypal image, right? That's
Right.
seen throughout history. And so it's
Mhm.
natural that we would see it, right? There's a knowledge shell here. There's, you know,
The
Nature
labyrinth,
rarely moves in straight lines. Right?
the labyrinth.
Prefers
yeah,
the curve.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
I love this because this is a mosaic from one of the NASA centers. And I forget which one. I think it's in the Midwest, but it shows kind of this cosmic evolutionary journey, right? Where you have this beginning of stars, galaxies, to the primeval Earth, and here are the first atoms assembling here. It's almost like there's a stream happening here, life all the way up here, the
Mm.
dinosaurs down here. And of course, they put astronomers on top of the mountain here with the telescopes, but there's some way that we're reflecting and learning the story through the telescopes that's kind of closing the circle. Right? It began in the beginning, and finally the universe has developed telescopes through which we can see the furthest points to see the beginning once again.
Oh,
Mm.
okay. So
So
mountaintops and ziggurats always been that place where we try to reach for the stars, were they not? So
Yeah.
exactly. And here from these observatories, we're actually seeing, as close to the beginning as we can. We're seeing the birth of the stars, and we're seeing that circle of causal circularity that led to us being here as well.
Mm.
wow.
And this is NASA. I mean, this is pretty progressive.
Yeah, yeah, I was going to
But
say, I love the fact that this is a NASA generated image. And Susan in
yeah,
the chat room saying, thank you so much. I'm an artist, a painter, and this is really shedding light on my work, especially one that she's painting. So, yeah, but there's a direct connection
oh,
to the artistry of life itself and that which we call science.
I, I'm so glad, Susan, you mentioned that because NASA doesn't just need scientists. NASA needs artists, right? In fact, NASA hires artists to actually begin to visualize what scientists are learning about. Right? We can't, I'm not a very good drawer, but to have an artist to actually visualize what people are discovering is so needed. And as Brian Swift and others have said, we're at a place where we're learning things about the universe where we don't have the words for. We can't
Mhm.
really express them in the old language because the language is stuck in old cosmology. So we need the artists, we need the poets, we need people to
Direct
dance and
experience.
celebrate, and exactly to express what we're learning in other nonverbal ways. Yeah, I will show just some of the larger context. This is a tremendous structure that was recently discovered, actually in the past 10 years, and it's Laniakea. This is a point, and every dot in this image is a galaxy or a cluster of galaxies. And what these strands are showing is showing the direction of motion of these galaxies. So in our part of the universe, things seem to be moving like leaves in a river towards a large attractor. It's called the Great Attractor. And Laniakea is kind of the basin for that attractor. It's the place where everything seems to be moving towards. So in our part of the cosmos, we're being swept along. Our galaxy is being swept along, as are the galaxies around us, like leaves in the current towards some point, right? So
Oh
it just
my.
shows that this cosmic dimension of attraction, I want to bring in this conversation about attraction and allurement as having a cosmic dimension to it. It shows that we are immersed in the context of rivers of allurement flowing through the cosmos at all levels, right? The universe is moving somewhere and is moving us
Beautiful.
in very specific, particular ways, right? That invisible hand you first mentioned, Laura
Exactly.
Lee. It's
Exactly.
moving us in very unique, specific ways in
Mhm.
particular directions. I want to just highlight that on all levels. The
Hmm.
Milky Way is being moved, everything around us is being moved. There's this kind of process of allurement which is permeating the cosmos.
Wow. From the large unseen hands to our individual unseen hands. Wow,
Exactly.
we're being
And
moved and nurtured and pushed along. Laniakea is a Hawaiian term. What's this connection to Hawaii?
so it was first discovered by Hawaiian astronomers, and they wanted to acknowledge the indigenous traditions of Hawaii. And so they used the name Lanakea, which means immense heaven. So acknowledging the Polynesian navigators, which used the heavens to navigate. And here we're acknowledging Lanakea as this large structure that we're kind of looking to as part of our navigation with the dynamics of the cosmos and what we're
Fabulous.
perceiving. Yeah, so I love that they're acknowledging, right, these ancient ways, these ancient words, these ancient technologies um, that are all around us with indigenous
You
peoples.
compared it to the ancient navigators that could cross the Pacific in tiny canoes,
Yeah,
the biggest ocean on Earth, just looking at star charts and reading the waves. And we had a conversation with Steve Thomas about that, who studied with one of those elders, this lost oral tradition. And he commented on how much ritual there was in order to memorize this deep wisdom. It was encoded in ritual and chants and song, as well as physical maps they would make out of shells
yeah,
and wood. And he commented that those rituals are very, very important to help deepen that relationship with the cosmos. That they really consider that ritual is part and parcel of developing that relationship, to be in the guidance, to be in the flow.
Right. Right.
Interesting.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I love what you're pointing to, Laura Lee, because it means that the ritual's not in the book, but it's a lived embodied wisdom. It's
There
in
you
our
go.
bodies,
Mm.
right? You have to sort of feel the map and to be the map in order to
And to
navigate in that
honor
way.
the map, to go through the rituals.
Mhm.
And it was part
Yeah,
of the cultural memorization, the cultural lineage to enact it. It was similar to, I asked, is it similar to the song lines where the Australian Aboriginal elders will sing the song lines as they walk the song lines to activate that whole sphere and field around them, to activate the consciousness of
Mhm.
that. So maybe this is part of this too.
Mhm.
I don't know.
yeah. I love that. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I should mention
Should we,
Steve Thomas is on our video. So it's on YouTube. So if people want to go back and watch that interview, it is there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd love to see it. Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have time for a few more? Or do you want to wait for
Yes, yes, please
questions?
go on.
Oh,
Please
and
go.
then
Let's
I know
This
just,
we
is
have an
fabulous.
audience anxious to talk with
We've
you.
got time.
Yeah.
yeah. This is another Carlos Budassi image. I bring it out here because it's a logarithmic map of the cosmos, but I love it because it's a piece of artwork, almost looks like a mandala. And at the center is right the Earth and Sun. but just a reminder here that everywhere in the cosmos is the center of the cosmos. You've got the planets, the sphere of stars. It's like a medieval map of the cosmos, the galaxies, and these are logarithmic. So every scale is a whole other level of measurement. And then here's the huge chains of galaxies. And then finally, the cosmic background radiation.
So he's
But I also
depicting
want to,
that kind of connective tissue that you described around the very outer edge.
yeah, and I don't want to focus on the outer edge here because I don't want to pretend the outer edge is somewhere else because the cosmic
Gotcha.
background radiation is right here, right? So the radiation permeates the entire sphere here. But it's just a lovely way of kind of putting all the information on one page in a very visually evocative way. So I could see this as a practice, and I've done this with some people as a visio divina. Let's just kind of contemplate this image here and see what comes in our bodies, see what comes from this conversation of contemplating the structure of the cosmos as a whole. So just little prompts for further exploration. Maybe we'll do posture around this at some point. Who knows? Right?
Yeah.
Once again, echoing Thomas Berry, the universe is a communion of subjects, not a collection of objects. And communion is an active verb. It's not just the interwoven tissue, but it's the interweaving that's taking place in every moment. It's an active happening, right? Because the universe is process. It's not a thing. And so the communion is the opportunity of every moment, is to commune together with the subjectivity of others around us. And each one of us, I like to say, is like nodes in the web. You think about Indra's web, right? We're all nodes of places where cosmic experience comes together, interwoven with all these other nodes, which includes, of course, people, trees, plants, stars. These are all nodes of experience for the cosmos. I'm trying to get to these other ones. Forest, we'll come back to the forest here. I want to tell people about an allurement walk I went. Brian Swim has this wonderful idea of allurement, this idea that there's something that's compelling us, that's something that's drawing us forward into some new level or dimension of flourishment. And so I took myself on an allurement walk last summer, and I looked around to see where's allurement taking place in my environment. Right? It's a cosmic dynamic. Where's it taking place? And look at these trees and look at these flowers and how they're reaching and yearning for the sun. I mean, you could just see the tension in here that these flowers, if they could jump up and fly away towards the sun, they would. But they're yearning with their whole body, their whole being. They are shaped by this relationship with the sun. And these flowering trees here, they're reaching upwards. So there's this the kind of dynamism allurement, almost like iron filings in a magnetic field, where things are being drawn into alignment. Once again, there's that idea of coming to alignment along song lines of allurement. So this is just a walk around my neighborhood, what I saw. And I encourage people to do your own allurement walk. Go around and let yourself be called, let yourself be allured in whatever direction you're compelled to walk. Notice where you're drawn, notice what it feels like to be allured, and notice where you see allurement happening around you.
Yeah.
Where is yearning happening to take place? And not only yearning, but also synergy. Where is allurement bringing you together with some new being? And one wonderful example of this is the emergence on Earth of this whole new dimension of life called flowers. Right before 100 million years ago, there were no flowers. Flowers were an emergence of life on Earth. So just remarkable. I mean, flowers weren't around through most of the dinosaur period. They emerged, and as soon as they emerged, honeybees emerged as well, right? So beings to be in relationship with flowers. And so I love that there are these emergent relationships that take place that are mutually beneficial. Bees benefit from flowers and flowers benefit from bees, and the entire history of life benefits from these relationships of synergy. So allurement leads to interaction, and that interaction leads to a synergy, where there's the mutual beneficial emergence of both organisms in that relationship. And so I like to ask my students, right, where are you pollinating? Right? Where are you spreading your allurement, and where are you being pollinated? Right? Where are you being nurtured?
What are you midwifing? Yeah.
Exactly. And what is being midwifed through you? Right? Because you're the place where something's coming through, but you're also being touched by what other people are sharing as well. So it's always a relationship of mutual enhancement when it's in this life forward direction.
And we each have our essential roles to play in the grand scheme.
And they're so unique. I mean, isn't that just astonishing that each one of us has this unique particular set of allurements that we're drawn to?
You get a
It's
sense of the
somehow
universe at play, right? Just the
really,
joy of invention, play, discovery, curiosity.
I
Yeah,
feel that very strongly. Yeah.
the big
And just
dance. Yeah,
how much the universe loves diversity, right?
yeah.
10 million different species. No two alike. No two leaves on a tree alike. I mean, it's all so unique.
All this unity in its diversity. We have time for questions, comments, whatever you want to pose to Stephen and
Yeah.
say. And I just need to see a show of hands and
Well,
yeah.
I'm back. Let me get a couple going myself here. First of all, I wanted to give Brian the first follow up. Then I want to involve Tony Hull, our
Great.
astrophysicist friend and
Who worked on the
advisor
James
to the
Webb. He's got something
advisor
to
to this
say.
institute. Also, Monica DeRath Bowles, who's the co-author with Brian Swim, is here in the audience as well. So let's start
Okay.
off with Brian Tucker first. Hello, Brian.
Hello.
Brian.
It's so wonderful to see these images, hear you speaking, Steve. It really opens my heart. It reminds me also about really the problem of language and how we're grappling with this idea that we can both at once talk about a universe that's 13.7 billion years old, but also talk about the concept of cosmogenesis, that it's in the moment being reborn. And I think, as you suggested, like the artists and the poets, we need a way of coming up with a new language that doesn't put us immediately into the duality. In Monica, she's always referenced, and maybe Brian Swim too, the universing, the thinking of the
Yeah.
universe as a verb, as has been suggested by others. God is a verb. It was a famous title of a book. But I just wonder about, you're pointing to practices for an ecozoic era where life begins to flourish rather than what we'd call the Anthropocene, where life seems to be constantly in a destructive phase. So just if you could give some more explanation of how you've been grappling with this language problem and how does that show up for you?
Well, you're so right, Brian, because it really is a time for the poets, because the language that we're using, English was formed at a time when Newtonian cosmology was the dominant paradigm, right? Because English has all these verbs, it has all these nouns. I think I've heard it has more nouns than any other language in modern times, and it has verbs. And so when you're speaking English, you're essentially speaking Newtonian cosmology. Brian Swim really opened me to this, right? So it's hard to kind of share this emergent living cosmogenesis with old language. So we're in the stuck place. So we need to either invent new language, new ways of using language, like inging, right? So Brianing, Steving, Pauling, Laura Leeing, right? So to recognize that we're a dynamic process, and to come up with new forms of communication, right? New forms of ways to share. We're so dominant on the rational mind and on the written word in our culture, and it's wonderful. It's a way of preserving cultural DNA, but we need other ways as well. I mean, think about that NASA mosaic, right? That shows the image of the whole. I think we need these images that really represent the sense of wholeness, but also the differentiated particularity that we are as well.
Or those Polynesian ancestors that put you
Yeah.
through ritual into direct experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I really also like your notion, Steve, about bringing people out under the stars. If we brought lawmakers out, if the United Nations had a dome that really made visible the night sky, how much policy making could be done under the night sky that would be so much more effective.
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I also think about the overview effect, right? When people go into space, they come back changed. And maybe that should be a requirement for governing any country, is to go into space to have the bigger view, the experience of the bigger view, and then come back and make policy from that perspective, versus from starting from a divided point already and having policy come from there. So we have to begin with the whole and then see how the whole wants to express itself in the particular and have that be the guideline for our policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great idea. Yeah.
Like
Great.
that.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Well, I want to introduce you also to an advisor on our advisory committee, Tony Hull. Tony's an astrophysicist and he's adjunct professor at the University of New Mexico. And we've had fantastic discussions with him about the James Webb and about astronomy in general. And here we are. There you are, Tony.
Hey, Tony.
All right. Well, hello. Very, very great to meet you, Stephen. And I'm really enjoying this. And I'm totally resonating with so many things that are said here. And you just mentioned allurement. And you mentioned what happened when you were 8 years old. And I was thinking back that when I was 8 years old, I used to crawl on the roof of the farmhouse, which I grew up on in northern Connecticut, and watch the stars. Much to the horror of my mother, I would bring a blanket up there, but I was up on the roof for hours every night. And it was sort of part of an adventure, part of a connection. I was drawn to it. Let's see, 15 days ago, I was giving the keynote lecture at a place called Stephan. I don't know if you've heard of it or not.
I've been there and love it. So terrific.
Yeah,
That's great.
well, it was the 101st meeting at Stephan, and there were several hundred people present. And I was talking a little bit about what's in my sort of scientific DNA. What happened? What are the steps? And there do seem to be some connections, and this is something that fascinates me, and I sense that you know that too. So the first trip I made as a boy when I had my own car was to drive up to Stephan.
Uh-huh.
So, I remember how it was 62 years ago, so that tells you how long ago it was. But this was part of what I identified in my lecture, which was kind of a nostalgic lecture that I gave. It was on Webb, but it was also on my path of getting to Webb. And I talked about the catalyst, the special things that happen, the connections that led to mentors. And from what I learned, all these amazing coincidences would happen, which took me on the path there. Well, there's so many little things that just fell in place. And talking my way into a class that turned out to be graduate level as a freshman at the University of Pennsylvania in astronomy, while I was an engineering student there, and how this leveraged to summer jobs at Swarthmore and being instrumental in the early part of the haystack antenna and things like that. Yeah. These things all sort of connected. Nobody would have ever guessed that. But I'm also amazed again at how many things have come together in totally unexpected ways. It's not like I could sit down and plot a path to this, but it just kind of happened. And I can count many coincidences, and maybe in some other format I can talk more about them.
Yeah,
but it does. Something's going on. This is not a random process.
There's that path of being a scientific mystic, that you take on the world of science, but you just like Dr. Goodman and like the two of you, being someone that's also open to the full spectrum of what the universe has to offer. And so, yeah, Tony is a part of that, part of the path of being a mystic as well as a scientist. And he's been very influential, very, very supportive of all the work that we're doing and consulting us and keeping our vision broad. So it's a pleasure you guys can do shop talk sometime.
Well, we should do this. One of the things I did since Stephan was 100 years old, and we talked about, we had pictures of the early telescopes that were made, and for a while the largest telescope on Earth was the 200-inch at Mount Palomar, etc. And George Ellery Hale had a big role in that. It was a Stephan product, and so I kind of ended my talk by mentioning things that I'm working on now. We have even a more complex telescope called Habitable Worlds Observatory, and I'm involved in the ultra stability of the mirrors on that. But I kind of ended with, imagine Stephan in the year 2124, and somebody is up giving a talk, and they're going to laugh at the telescopes we're making now, because they're going to have telescopes in space the size of a football field, as Stephen mentioned earlier about the radio telescope. Yeah. But with the density of a dime over this entire area, and it's going to be supported electrostatically in some magic way or some way which we can't even imagine now. And they're going to laugh at these little 6.5 meter telescopes we have in space now.
Or
Thank you, Tony.
that one of the first was made like a horn, like people used to have a hearing aid that was a horn, or we have an ancient artifact where the horn is held up,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the
Yeah.
horn is a very precise device. I mean, it's you can calibrate it in a very careful way. And
Yeah.
that was and part of what was happening then was trying to understand. It was not aiming at finding the cosmic microwave background. It was aimed at finding this all about these darn noise sources. And it was being run by Bell Telephone Laboratory.
What's interfering? Yeah.
And I love the 1 in 100 bits of static you hear. Well, the 99 bits were taken away, and they were still left with one, and there was no way to explain it except by a background, which then was thought to be about 4 degrees Kelvin. Now it's more like 2.7, thought to be, and it matched. And somebody and
Eureka.
Penzias and Wilson, they made the connection with some of the theoretical work on the Big Bang.
Yeah.
So we are just being pushed along the path, are we
Stephen,
not?
it's our pleasure to introduce you to Tony, and maybe you two can do shop talk sometime.
I'd love to.
Well,
I've got some. I actually have some beryllium right here, so we just
Great.
to keep my depth. So yeah.
Let me just mention two things really quickly. There was a wonderful talk at the meeting of the American Astronomical Society last summer by an astrophysicist from the University of Arizona, who is also Cherokee. And the title of the talk was Astronomy with Two Eyes.
Oh, I like that.
So,
beautiful.
So I love that. And at the same meeting, the president of the American Astronomical Society ran a seminar on the last day doing watercolor paintings of your images of space.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Get those artists in there and get the indigenous voice in there.
So this is contagious. Whatever it is, it's contagious.
Yeah.
I love it.
Thank you for that backstory on
Tony.
the web. Yeah. Tony's going to join us when we talk more about what are those coincidences? How do the unseen hands push us along?
Okay.
We want to hear more of those.
Yeah. Thank you, Tony. Always
thank you.
Very fun, and it's a joy to be on.
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to Monica. Maybe you know Monica already. I
know Monica. She came on the Deep Time Leadership Program.
Oh, good.
So yeah, it's been a while, but yeah.
Hi, Stephen. I'm just so I loved everything. Hey, hi, and I don't remember before, but I do know your work a little bit. And one of the things you said early was that this changes everything. You said this changes everything. The fact that it's a cosmogenesis, and that I feel that all the ways in which everything has been changed comes through everything you're talking about, as you align and center with a sense of cosmogenesis and in your conversation about in everything that you're saying, the sense of a cosmos, is so ingrained in what it is. It's in our bones, it comes through us from our traditions, and we're just finding ways to get out of this, as you say, with language and everything. We don't have a mental alignments set up and ready to grab a hold of, but it does come through you, and I think I feel it, and it feels wonderful. So
thank you.
Yeah, just one thing. When we're talking here about, when we look at the background radiation, or when we don't just look at the background. We're bathed in it. The background, it's been here this whole time, and we're just now learning with science what is here. We're looking at that which became what we are, and when we look at one another, we're looking at that which is becoming what we are becoming, and just like trees turn towards the sun and everything else. And it's amazing because it just goes back to the mathematical proportions, even so that we can love a certain kind of music. It's so that there can be music that is in alignment with the proportions. Because if it makes a certain ratio, the pitch of a musical note, then it's music to our ears, and then another ratio will just be noise. So it's like there's commitments made in these proportions from the early universe, that such that everything that comes forth after that is correlated with those ratios.
I love that. I love that. Yeah. And that brings us back to the spiral and right the golden ratio and the golden mean, but also
Yes.
the deep structure that's present, in us that reflects the deep structure of the cosmos from the
Y-
beginning. I mean,
Yeah.
it's another
like the
resonance of
Nautilus shell.
belonging.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a deep sense. So even like what Paul Derek realized is there's a very specific ratio between certain cosmic powers, such as the strength of electromagnetism versus the strength of gravity, and that same ratio is found. That same number is found, in between other fundamental powers, like the number of elementary particles, and also the age of the universe. So the universe has been maintaining, and it's in everything, the ratios necessary to generate life, consciousness, and now humanity with a self-reflective awareness of as the universe itself.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
in these ratios necessary to awaken in us an awareness of itself.
Yeah.
Ratios
Yeah.
sound like music to our souls. It's
And
amazing.
Oh,
the music
I'm
of the
so
spheres is in everything that we
I'm so
hear.
resonating with you, Monica. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
And what's
Really
striking me, I want to share what's striking me now is just, we're aspects of a differentiated unity, and a differentiated unity that expresses itself in a unique particularity that's very precise. And as you're talking about what Dirac pointed out, right, our universe is very precisely the way it is.
Mhm.
It's very much uniquely itself, right? If there's a multiverse out there with, an infinite number of universes, our universe is extremely uniquely differentiated to be the particular one that we come from. And we're particularly unique differentiations of that whole. So I'm just so resonating with what you're saying with, the different ratios, but just the particularity of our particular cosmos being the unique self that it is, right? It's almost like our universe is shining. It's like, look at me, I'm my unique self, and look at us as unique selves of that larger self.
Mm.
So it's just
What are the
so much
mechanisms
is
by
resonating.
which the universe is self-regulating? I mean, we've discovered Gaia, Mother Earth, is self-regulating. She'll correct these order, chaos dance. She'll come back.
Yeah.
How is the universe doing that when you say it's self-regulating? What are those mechanisms?
Well, I don't know if I said self-regulating, but it's certainly self-organizing. But that would
Self-organizing.
imply self-regulating as well.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a future pressing in to, that is drawing us forward. There's a not yetness in every moment. And
Yeah,
And not yetness.
I
like
love that term. Yeah.
I love
exactly. Right. The now is just a slice of a larger perspective that's, having influence on what's present here.
Oh,
yeah, very nice to hear everything you have to say. I'm very aligned. Thank you.
yeah.
Oh, thank you,
Thank you,
Monica. Thank you for your
Monica.
work. I know
Was
about
it-
your work with Brian, and I'm so excited about what you're doing as well. So
And
it's so
Monica-
great to meet and
Do you
resonate
Yeah.
together.
Do you suspect that dark matter and dark energy are part of that dance with the visible, what we see as the visible universe, that's part of the self-organizing, self-regulating mechanism? There has to be
I think-
more to it that's keeping the order and the chaos and its continual
Well, Stephen
dance.
never really seen the dark matter. We've only seen the effects of the dark matter, and maybe the need for dark matter is an artifact of the physics that is trying to capture it, but physics is not really thinking about the not yetness. It's not real. It's more of an abstract. I'd like to know what you think.
It's not a
Steve.
static universe. It's
Ab-
yeah.
So we have a dark matter.
Yeah. Whatever it is, it's coherent with the whole, right? It's not disrupting things so that life isn't possible, but it's coherent and aligned with the dynamics of life. Whatever dark matter and dark energy is.
There's a wonderful story from Joseph Campbell when he's describing some of the ancient Vedic mythologies that describe how immense this universe is.
Mm.
And he talks about Brahma, which is supposed to be that who breathes the universe in and out, and the over largest being of the universe. And he says that the Brahman was very surprised when he is shown this tiny little sphere with ants walking along it. little tiny beings. And in close up, you see these ants, and he's asking, I guess, the larger sphere above him, what are those little ants? Oh, those are Brahmin. Those are all Brahmins. And so you are but one of a continuation, right? You think that you've reached the apex, that you've reached
Right.
the glimpse of the all. Oh, no, no. You are just reduced back to the tiny sphere once again to see there have been many before you, there will be many after you.
Yeah.
And you are one of a lineage of an evolving,
Mm.
continuous, never ending story and lineage. I always love that story because we'll never reach the end, but we can just get glimpses a little further out.
Yeah.
And then the story is we are but part of that whole. There's something far larger than us.
I would want to also just say, if you're going to start getting into the entire history of the Vedic scholarship and all that, we happen to have
A
Fred.
Vedic
Fred is
scholar. Oh,
Fred is here, so we can
goodness.
invite Fred to speak about that perspective of the universe from the Vedic
You will tell that
perspective.
story better than I ever could.
Yeah, but
Fred.
Monica, always delightful. Monica is
you, Monica.
co-author of a new publication, a new book coming out.
Monica, what's the title of the new book that you co-authored with Brian Swim, since he's been mentioned so much?
Story of the Noosphere. It's coming out in October with Orbis Books.
Oh, perfect.
And it's also the companion piece to the video series, The Story
Yeah.
of the Sphere, which
Yeah.
is that you co-wrote.
But there's a lot of incredible art in the book by Brian's son, Sebastian. It's a full color, art on every page, and
Oh, wow.
his vision of the kinds of things that we're talking about in the book.
Yeah.
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 Thank
Thank
you.
you for all the work that you do too, Monica.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
I didn't want to put Fred in the spot. Fred, did you want to make a comment? See if he's.
Let us introduce
yeah.
you to another member of our community.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I can make a comment or two. I guess I like to ask questions more than I like to make independent comments, but yes, it's true that I have studied, sort of Vedic stuff for most of my career, basically.
Adult life.
Which was
Stuff. Yeah.
maybe all my life, but I was a professor at University of Iowa for 30 years. So, and I taught Sanskrit and such things. And but I was just thinking about self-regulating. Is everything that's self-creating also self-regulating? You seem to make a distinction there, or hinted a distinction. I mean, is there a place where like chaos can just like capsize the entire project that
Good
you're
question.
talking about?
Could be. I mean, there's a role for chaos, right? It's not all about creating more and more order, but it's also about disrupting that order so that new levels of order and chaos can come in.
Mhm.
So yeah, I would say that's
Wipe
not
the edges
always
step clean between things. Yeah.
well,
I
and creating forms and
I got
breaking them.
distracted. I got distracted on Carlos Budas's website, so forgive me.
Oh, it's eye candy for sure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, along these lines, I wanted to share a new word I learned last week. And this is from Nora Bateson, who's Gregory Bateson's daughter, who also works in systems theory and complexity theory. And she points out, part of the challenge of complexity right now is forming mutually interdependent relationships, recognizing that we are mutually interdependent with everyone and everything around us. So we often think, well, I'm the source of the order. I'm the ordering principle here. It's like, no, the system is the ordering principle. That's what's happening here.
Mhm.
But we're each, kind of a source of that ordering principle. And I'm gonna take a stab at pronouncing it, but it's a wonderful word. Maybe I'll put it in the chat. And it's called aphanipoesis. It's the unseen coalescence. It's the unseen coalescence of life towards vitality.
The unseen
Aphanipoesis.
coalescence of life. What was the last of the sentence?
The unseen coalescence of life towards vitality. So in other words, all those unseen forces in our life that are kind of working behind the scenes, below the scenes, to kind of move things forward, and they suddenly emerge, and all of a sudden we have some kind of synchronicity or some kind of transcendent experience. But there's all these forces that have been working all along behind the scenes that are present in every situation like that. And she just named this word aphanipoesis. Aphani means hidden. Poesis means self-making or organizing.
Can
The unseen
put that word
coalescence
up
of
on
life.
Yeah, can you put it up on the chat? That word? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put it in the chat here. Let's
We'll
see.
evoke that next Sunday when we talk about how that works in our individual lives.
Yeah.
So
That's
to
interesting.
think
Here,
that
this is-
that's a principle of the ordering of the universe and it's at work in our daily lives is also very exciting.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I
when we
can
think about
relate to a lot of,
synchronicity. Yeah, of course.
I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. I mean, through my own knowledge about the way that, Indian knowledge, history and systems and so on operate. The, especially the point that every place is the center of the universe. There's, you can say there's no place that's really the middle of nowhere. That every place is the center of creation, and that's exactly consistent with what you find in the Indian systems, for sure.
Oh, and Vedic philosophy just has this appreciation of the vastness of both time and space. I mean, just the
Yeah.
cycles within cycles, and just the scale that they appreciate is really remarkable. So,
I like the fact that this is also coming into our collective consciousness now in our culture with movies such as Everything Everywhere All at Once, right? We're playing around with that idea in the various mediums that we have,
Modern
science
pop
fiction
culture,
and yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
So the
Yeah.
Matrix, all that.
Yeah.
We're playing with those ideas again.
Yeah.
and what Monica's mentioned with future causation, right? That maybe the future is somehow drawing us towards, right, a very Teilhardian idea that somehow there's, a causal interaction between the future and the past and the present moment. So these unseen influences again.
Well, some scientists say time is a two-way street. It
Yeah.
runs forwards and backwards. Think about that.
Sure.
Monica, let's add you back in here.
Oh, sorry. I was just thinking though, time is irreversibility, and I don't think that time goes backwards or that we can go backwards in time. I think that is fundamental, but I could be wrong. Didn't mean to say no.
Cool.
I,
Somebody else.
Every Reddit, yeah. Vanity Magazine says.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well, thank you both, Fred and Monica, for adding to the conversation. There's a couple comments in the chat room, Laura. Let's go to those real quickly, and then see if anybody else wants to raise their hand.
Jonah Wilson says, such an exciting conversation. The unseen hand is at work here now for me. So grateful. I hope you tell us some of those stories next Sunday. Judy Zappacosta, as a Jungian psychologist, she writes, there are so many parallels with resonance and ritual between humans and the larger cosmos. We are in a time of new myths and new language, indeed. Sand play is one of the ways that organicity and the archetypal meet together in a larger temenos. Thank you. Very interesting. What? New word there, temenos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Judy. Well,
Thank you. You want to turn on the mic and explain more? And Nora Bateson, you're putting the word combines the two words from ancient Greek to describe this way in which life coalesces towards vitality in unseen ways. Oh, I'm going to invoke that next Sunday.
and pronounce it one more time.
I don't know if this is correct pronunciation. Your guess is as good as mine. Aphanipoesis?
Aphanipoesis. Yeah.
Someone who knows Greek would pronounce it better than I.
Poesis is a common term, but to put it together with aphana. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful.
So what is the general, while we're waiting for people to raise their hands, what is the general reaction when you speak, not to your lay audience, because I can imagine the joy, the aha moments, just the juiciness of those conversations. How is it when you take this message to your more standard cosmologists and scientists? What is their reaction?
It's mixed. Of course, people are in different places, and cosmology, has different aspects to the field. I mean, cosmology is a very scientific discipline within, the larger paradigm of physics, and Tony knows a lot about that as well. But cosmology, in the way that Thomas Berry talked about it, is the worldview. It's the larger perspective. It's the cosmic, exploration of the whole on all different levels. And so we have to be kind of, careful with the language, and not override, what is scientific language being used in a particular way, and kind of pushing it beyond, its boundaries of usage. So, I try to be, careful and precise, but also push boundaries at the same time. It's like, well, let's contemplate cosmos in this larger sense, right? Some people say cosmos with a K, right? The ancient Greek that Ken Wilber brought into common parlance, right? The larger sense.
So mythopoetic is a language that so many of us speak because we live this. And this is the language of arts and literature and just personal experience. And we had we in our radio show we interviewed many of those same folks, but one was Leonard Schlein, and he wrote a book on art and physics. And his premise was, the artists have their finger to the wind. They have their senses out there to grok, to be some of the early receptors for what's emerging in our culture, in our sciences. And he started to liken Picasso's Cubism to one of the earliest expressions of what physics would then start to say in its language. And so that there's just a good relationship from whatever cultural aspect you're in, from the sciences to the arts, that we are grokking this together, even grokking being a term from sci-fi Robert Heinlein, right? We embody this beyond just our linear, rational thinking, that it's there permeating us because we have such a wider spectrum that our mind works through. That maybe our culture honors just this linear to the exclusion, but that wider spectrum is how we live and how we experience. And your thoughts on that? The syncopation of the arts and the sciences and all of our culture, literature, sci-fi, all of it. We are drawn along together.
I see a lot of hands coming up too, so I want to invite them to join our conversation.
Oh yeah.
But we're a highly differentiated species. Each one of us has a unique set of sensitivities that is our own particular portal to the universe. And so it makes sense that compartments such as art or physics or science wouldn't hold our human experience. As humans, we can do science and art. And I think that was part of Leonard's point. And often these are complementary, but these are artificial compartments that really don't apply to the whole breadth and range of human experience and human sensitivity, capacities and ways that we have of tuning into and being sensitive to the universe.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Thank you for
I
that.
think, yeah.
I had to go take my sneeze off camera.
Ezekiel's next.
Ooh.
Okay, turn on your camera and mic.
Hey, Ezekiel.
Hey, Steve, thanks so much for the talk today. I really have appreciated everything that's been shared. And yeah, I really appreciate that this space exists where folks can come together and talk about some pretty cutting edge stuff. I feel, as you probably know, Steve, we know each other a tiny little bit, but there's a lot of resonance between what you're up to and what I'm up to. And I'm really grateful for that. And I'm feeling like we're due for a catch-up call offline. But in this context, I wanted to pose a question to you, kind of coming out of the work that I'm up to right now, which is related to really the experience of cosmogenesis, and I appreciate what you were saying about sort of, the use of technical terms. And for me, consciousness is one of those that gets so slippery so quickly. Like, what is it? What do we mean by it? And in my work, I kind of try to background consciousness a little bit and foreground experience. And so my question is, in terms of bringing evolutionary cosmology across the threshold of experience, bringing it, into the sort of tangible, moment by moment lived reality. What have you discovered in your teaching, in your parenting, in your living that is effective in terms of helping yourself and others to remember to something, or how do you do it? I want to know more of like the how.
It's a great question. I'd love to have a conversation offline about this as well. But I've kind of backed away from using consciousness as kind of like a general term. And like you, I've come back to experience. Like, oh, what's present in experience now? Right? Because that's the undeniable truth, is this is what's present. I have this, knowledge that I'm aware, and here's what I'm aware of. And, when you go back down to it, that's what's present, moment by moment by moment. And so if you come back to the basics, but also, my work is really appreciating how those basics have feet in a larger world, right? So my capacity to be aware is part of my, reptilian brain if that's being engaged right now, or my, my neocortex. So there's an appreciation for the scientific aspects of it, but also like, well, what's the direct experience of what's happening right now? Yeah, and your question about practices is something that's, very alive in my communities as well. It's like, well, how do we practice it, right? Well, one way is, of course, the ecstatic postures. That's one way of kind of bringing in cosmic consciousness into direct experience and using that as a form of exploration. Other forms are some of the contemplative cosmology events I've done with colleagues, where we're out there and we're just contemplating together, right? We're opening ourselves up to what was to come into experience as we talk about, right, nuclear fusion in the sun. What comes into your experience? And people have these insights, they have these experiences, and when they share them, it touches me. And so being together in resonant community where we share our experiences together and we kind of fire each other up is really so helpful. Yeah, I mean, being in diverse communities where people have different ways of kind of finding their way in, I love that. I love just jumping into someone's community. It's like, well, let's try this technique and see what happens, right?
Vic, you
So
mentioned parenting also, and we saw a photo of you with your 10-year-old son.
yeah, and there's an appreciation of his uniqueness in our bond together, but also his differentiation and my dedication as a parent to support his unique path forward. And I'm aware, it's like, hey, I'm gonna look at my telescope tonight. It's like, nah, Dad, that's your thing. I'm gonna go play Pokemon. I'd say, okay, we gotta acknowledge that. So, acknowledge I've got my own path, he has his own path, and how can we find a way to honor both?
Perfect. Ezekiel,
Yeah.
nice to have you on, and maybe we should have an offline conversation as well at some point.
Well, we
Yeah.
have something
I'd
about,
like to hear more of these conversations.
parenting and cosmology, right? So have a theme to talk about this. I love it because it's not easy, and it certainly brings out new dimensions of cosmogenesis for sure.
Tell us
Yeah.
more about your work, Ezekiel. If you shoot us an email, we can be in touch.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go to Judy, and here she is. Hello, Judy.
Hi, Judy. You've got to unmute.
Yeah, she's down in the
Got
bottom.
it. Well,
Hey.
I can just say it's very fortunate that you have a psychotherapist that does family therapy online today. So not to worry, it can all be enveloped in this discussion. I'm very pleased that this is such a diverse community mostly. So
Yeah.
thank you. And I just wanted to let you know that Temenos is exactly what we are all holding on this moment. Temenos is a sacred space. It comes from Greek. So we talk in my work a lot about holding a temenos with our clients in a therapy room. And I was just yesterday offering an online discussion about the archetype of the Black Madonna, who actually shows up throughout history and kind of globally in many different places, often kind of found on top of old sacred sites. So one of the stories that I uncovered in my work, kind of developing this presentation, was that originally there supposedly was a meteor shower. And in this meteor shower, a black stone meteor fell to Earth. And early on, they decided to insert it into one of the early goddess images. So I find this kind of connection as we're talking and synchronicity about dark matter coming into being from the very ancient beginnings of time. And here we are forwarding it in this piece of time. So thank you very much. This has been quite interesting, and I love the diversity here.
Wow.
Thanks.
Please shoot us an email so we can invite you to talk about the Black Madonna. And I will say that we are aware that meteors were very prized by these early societies, and they picked them up to create them as sacred objects and shape them. So we have Ken Zoll
Oh, yeah.
is due to give us
Here
a
at
talk on
the,
that, about the cultures
the
here
Birdie
in the
Valley
Americas,
Archaeological Center.
but
and
certainly
things.
happen
Yeah.
in Egypt and elsewhere.
Sure.
I
love
haven't
that.
heard the Black Madonna connection, so
That's a good one.
thank you.
Thank
We'd
you,
like to
Judy.
hear
You're
more.
welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And
Yeah.
temenos, I love adding a new word to my vocabulary.
And moving along,
And
I'm
we
going
certainly have our temenos right here.
to add
Yeah.
Karen.
Yeah.
Hi, Karen.
Hello, Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Hello. So good to be here and to hear once again one of my favorite teachers, Stephen, I was part of the Deep Time network certification program twice. And I just have to say, every time this opportunity comes into a new moment, there are always new connections being made. So I just wanted to bring in a couple of other words, since we're talking about Greek seems to be really up for us today.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
To bring in that much of our concretizing and staying stuckness comes from our chronos view of time, the linear time. The God Chronos ate his own children. I mean, when you start thinking about Chronos, it's like, the sooner we can get out of that and into Kairos time, which actually brings us back into place, and it brings this present moment into this emergent relationship between place time, becomes place time. So Kairos time, letting go of Chronos time. Thank you so much for the new one about Temenos. Oh my gosh, can't wait to find out more about that. And just one more thing I would add is I'm so grateful for the opportunities to sometimes have an invitation show up that resonates and discover what emerges. So this just happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I've been invited to present at the Gebser conference, which is happening in October.
John Gebster, yeah.
John Gebster, oh my
Wow.
gosh, I'm dipping into his stuff and I'm going, this is amazing. I mean, talking about perspective and how perspective got us into lines and into freeze framing our unique perspective as somehow representative of the entire universe, and how we have to get to the aperspectival perspective. And so I'm just getting involved in that. I just want to add his name to the soup here because, there's so much more that I'm excited about co-exploring with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you for that. You'll enjoy the last Sunday's talk with Bernice Marie Daly as well, now up on YouTube on our channel. But thank you.
Yeah.
So,
And another opportunity to contact us offline, and we'll continue to discuss.
you're invited to all of our events too, of course.
Yeah, we'll talk. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
wow.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Karen. Great to see you.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah,
Good.
that glow with your students, I can see that, Stephen.
I go to Sean in a moment. Stephen, did you have a comment?
No, just great to bring in Gebser's name, right? An ancestor of this perspective. So just acknowledging the ancestors that,
And when
have
we
led
don't
to-
know, we're not that familiar with, want to learn more about.
Yeah.
So,
And and here she is, Shauna. And Shauna is in what country is she in?
artist.
She's up in the middle of the night. Yeah, I know that.
Oh, yes.
She stayed up. She's in Bhutan. She's still awake.
Bhutan,
So
that's-
I'm glad we kept you awake, Shauna.
Yeah, there was no way I was going to fall asleep. The synchronicity of this discussion tonight and listening to you, Stephen, and just amazing synchronicity with the work. I'm an artist and I've been making some work here. And the title for the works is Magical Apparatus for Wayfinding in the Unknown.
Oh, I love
Love it. I love it.
Is that what we are? Magical apparatus for wayfinding in the unknown. You just encapsulated it all. Yeah.
That's it.
So I probably should share a picture of some of the artworks, but I'm working with the numka, which I believe that American Indians use, that 2 sticks with woven.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like a compass, and numka in Tibetan means space. So that led me, when I work, I just go to what my heart leads me to in terms of objects to work with. And so I started working with these numka, and then I thought about the relationship to the Polynesian navigational maps, which you spoke about. And this whole, it's been quite just so much resonance happening with the whole conversation tonight. But a couple of things I wanted to ask that struck me when you were talking about we're solar beings and dark matter. And I was thinking about how our iris is like dark matter, ready to receive that solar light. Like it's that perfect match of darkness and light that we embody. And recently too, just came across this amazing static on a TV screen, and it must have been some dissonance between channels that was happening.
Mhm.
And I wondered, when you're talking about the static on with radio waves, could there be does visual static work in the same way that we could be picking up some light from the Big Bang in static?
Yeah, the answer is yes. TV receivers and radio receivers both receive light from the Big Bang. So that static on the screen, you're seeing
It's
that light.
same thing, but visual.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's wonderful to know.
That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you,
So
Shanna.
glad you found us and you stayed up in
Yeah.
the middle of the night.
Send us some pictures of
Yeah.
your artwork and come join
Oh,
us in
love
our Art
to
and
see your work,
Spirit
Shona.
talks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to be in touch. So,
Yeah.
so
I'll try and make it for next week, but I'm not sure if I can.
there's many weeks to follow.
Yeah.
So,
Lovely.
it was interesting to talk about art and even the story that art is telling us or art is conveying or what the values are about art. And then looking at our culture today and why are we celebrating chaos so much? Why are we disassembling? Maybe it's time to disassemble our what was the term? Concretization of the past in order to make cracks in it for this new story to emerge. We are more akin to looking for new ways when the old ways stop working. And we could certainly say we're at a crisis point where the old ways, the old stories are no longer relevant for us. And we need to follow that. We need to have this emerge. And I'm just thinking that it must be that the universe is working through us in her brilliant dynamics in the way that evolution unfolds. And you tend to have a bit of a blow up. The dinosaurs had to, here's an asteroid, we'll just come and blow you up. Something is happening right now for this new story to emerge. We are being primed for it to emerge. The conditions are there, right? We're at the edge. The edge is where transitions happen. We can invoke Jeff Folk and his work with cymatics. You have, like Monica said, certain frequencies are happening. They create their own patterns. For other frequencies to emerge, a little bit of chaos. Things get mixed up.
In between the
You
frequencies.
go into, you can see that in the
Disorder
science of
back and forth.
dynamics.
Yeah,
right? We have a syncopation of order, chaos, order, chaos. It has a dance, light, dark, left, right, right leg. Something's happening. And I guess I just have to trust this universe knows what it's doing. And we're here along for the ride.
Yeah.
And we're trying to surf the crest and stay out of the mud and enjoy the ride. And it's exhilarating, right? And the more we open our bandwidth, the more we can, like that little dung beetle, align ourselves to the cosmic order, to the Milky Way, to the path of light where it's going. So it's up to each of us, right, to decide what frequency we're emanating, what we're allowing into our bandwidth, what we want to align with, what we want to follow the allurement. What allurements are we following? What are we letting ourselves be captured by? Starlight, our sun, love, allurement, the universe, one another in trying to build the universe we want to create. Or let's allow that universe to create through us where it needs to go next. I mean, it is quite the exciting ride, is it not? So I think dialogue is very important. In order to move the dial, like we like to say here, it's important to have these conversations. It's important to listen to one another and find where we resonate best. So I just, by saying thank you, Stephen, for all the work that you're doing, Tony's doing to help create those next generations.
And then the artists are doing
the artists to speak it forth, this community to come together, for the ancient wisdom to still embody us and how we might tune in
the
to
rediscovery
experience, as you're talking about, to open our bandwidth.
Sure.
It's just a delight to be alive in this time and day and just to dance with one another. That's all I'm saying. This has been a joy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Fantastic, Steve. And thank you so much.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
For
Thank
the
you
work
both,
that
and
you're
thank
doing.
you everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still digesting. I love this idea of
Yeah.
moving away from the word consciousness to the word experience. That says a lot. That really helps, because we do struggle with that, because of the fact of the work that we do, and the institute's constantly trying to update our languaging, that we can speak the language that people can follow, and that they can integrate it into
Experience is how consciousness is emerging in us right now.
Yeah.
So it
Beautiful.
experience is
Yeah.
it giving us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
thank
to
you.
go.
You need some
Go.
water.
Sorry.
Okay. Thank you, Steve. And it's
Your
been a
last words, Stephen. You get the last words here.
Yeah.
Well, I would just express gratitude for this moment, gratitude for this gathering, gratitude for this temenos. I love that new word's been brought forward into our space, and it's the space that continues. And we appreciate this chance to be together, to acknowledge our ancestors, to acknowledge our descendants, and to let this moment guide us into what comes next.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
All right, goodbye.
Okay.
Another.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.